Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon to everyone who is here in another Kumi session. Today, we will be focusing on Bedouin rights, and we will have a special guest that will be speaking about the Bedouin community in Palestine. Just before I start, let me remind everyone of some housekeeping rules. So if people want to be anonymous, please change your name or turn off your camera because this is streamed live on Facebook and recorded to the Sabil archives. Moreover, if you have any questions, please put them on the chat and I'll try my best to ask them towards our speaker. So let me introduce our speaker. So Dr. Mahmoud Suleiman is a Palestinian farmer, nonviolent activist and academic. Dr. Suleiman is a remote visiting research fellow at the Center for Trust, Peace, and Social Relations at Coventry University. He completed his PhD in Peace and Conflict Resolution Studies from Coventry University and is one of the founders of PSCC. And he is recognized as a human rights defender. He has more than 15 years of experience in organizing nonviolent campaigns and nonviolent collective actions against building the segregation wall and the Israeli settlements in occupied Palestine. With that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Suleiman.
Thank you very much, Sumail.
So maybe let's just begin. Before we start asking questions about the Bedouin community, could you tell us a bit more what PSCC is and what does PSCC do?
Thank you very much for organizing this special event with those special people. And thanks to Sabil. Sabil is the organization that carries the values of the Holy Land, the values of Jesus, the Palestinian, the message of peace, justice, and freedom that emerged from my town, from Bethlehem, where I live. And I'm proud to be one of his followers in the Holy Land, in the land of peace. PSCC is Popular Struggle Coordination Committee that was established back in 2009 as a grassroots organization from different active villages at that time. When Israel started building the segregation wall, there were other organizations that's taking care of, but we saw that there is a lack of Palestinian strategy, divisions that came after 2007, and we said we must be representing the voice of the voiceless, especially when it comes to a fragmented society as a result of internal issues that happened between West Bank and Gaza. Therefore, we are independent grassroots organization that is not affiliated by a single political party, but we are looking at the people who are active on the ground, and your membership in this grassroots organization is your activism on the ground, far away from your skin color, your religion, and your political affiliation. We focus on your involvement in popular nonviolent resistance. And that's where we thought it's a good platform for activists to be together in order to support communities and to represent these communities in the General Assembly and the board members of the PSCC. What we are doing, we are responsible for organizing direct nonviolent actions that was taking place in many Palestinian villages, including Bedouin, Alin, Nabi Saleh, Ma'asara, my village, South Hebron Hills, and many others. At a certain time, we reached 40 active villages from the Jordan Valley to the north of the West Bank down to the south. And that was the peak of the popular resistance. And then we start organizing national campaigns. These national campaigns called the Rebuilding Villages campaigns, which actually was targeting Bedouins, as we did in Bab el-Shams, the Sun Gate, east of Jerusalem, back in 2013. And that campaign actually to find the homes and to dig on the everyday dwelling of the Bedouins in areas around Jerusalem and other places, and also in Jericho, on the land of Ain Hijla, the monastery of Ain Hijla, and many other places in South Hebron Hills and beyond, in addition to campaigns to rebuild houses for people in Masafir Yatta, for example, in South Hebron Hills and beyond. And lately, we are focusing on fostering the resilience of the Palestinians in the most threatened areas, which called Area C, such as Masafir Yatta, East Ramallah, Jordan Valley, and other places surrounded by illegal Israeli settlements and others. In addition to building the capacity of the youth, we have people, we build their capacities, skills in order to be able to document human rights violations and to move forward with them, to take to handle them the candle of freedom and resistance for the future.
Thank you. Thank you for that excellent introduction of PSCC. The Bedouin community in Palestine are a part of our community, a part of the people, but it might be worth first saying who they are. Who are exactly the Palestinian Bedouins, and why are they particularly vulnerable with the Israeli state and with the ethnic cleansing of Israel?
Yesterday, I was coming back from Ramallah, home to Bethlehem. The Rizariya area, if the people are familiar with geography of Palestine, was traffic and the road was stuck. So I decided to come via an paved road. When I was on a hill, I was looking to the east. I saw Ma'ali Adumim settlement. And to the east, I saw a Bedouin community just at the edge of the settlement. And I saw that Ma'ali Adumim was expanding from both sides, apart from the Bedouin communities. Bedouins, they are indigenous Palestinians that are facing the forcible displacement since before Nakba, before 1948. Those Palestinian Bedouins were evicted back in 48 from the Negev, the south of historical Palestine, and to the West Bank, mainly to the east hills of the West Bank. Bedouins are the salt of the soil. Why? Because they are the frontline defenders of Area C. Back in 48, around 750,000 Palestinians were expelled from their land. Most of them lived in refugee camps. Jenin is an example. Jenin is less than half square kilometer, with more than 23,000 Palestinians living on that. Thanks to the Bedouins and their lifestyle that enabled them to adapt to the nature and to spread on the east hills of the West Bank. That by itself is resistance. Because if the Palestinian Bedouins did the same as the other Palestinian refugees, they will be now jailed in camps, and the Israeli planes, drones are targeting them the same as they are doing in Nur Shams, in Tulkarem, and in Jenin and the old city of Nablus. But the Bedouins, because of their lifestyle as shepherds, they prefer to spread on the hills of the east hills of the West Bank, from Masafir Yatta in the south down to the north of the Jordan Valley. Even some of them are living in the Galilee, in the high Galilee, inside 48 at the borders of Syria and Lebanon. So the Palestinian Bedouins, with their lifestyle, protected the Palestinians' land over 70 years now. And Israel is now approaching them. So if we look at the definition of the Bedouins by themselves, we look for the lifestyle of the people. Despite their race, they are Palestinians. So we are not looking at them as nomadic people and they do not have a sense of belonging and attachment to land. No. As some academics and some scholars describe them, they are nomadic like water. They move from place to place and they do not have attachment to land. No, they are super attached to the land. And because without the land, they will not sustain. And I will give you examples of this. Because without nature, without being on land, Bedouins have no existence. So when we say that existence is resistance, this is 100% applicable on Bedouins. Because they are protecting the land, they are productive, they are not consumers. As going to work in settlements and Israeli state. Yet they are on their land walking kilometers and kilometers. For the people who might not know, Israel established a law back in 1956 prohibiting Palestinian goats, what we call Bedouin goats, from grazing in the hills and of Palestine. You know why? And they market the Swiss goats back in the 50s. Because the Swiss goat, you can't put it on the balcony. While the Bedouin goats, you have to run after her kilometers and kilometers. And when you run behind the goats, then this means that you are there and you are on the land and you inhibit the confiscation of the land. And after that, back in 2016, when the fires came in the forests of Jaffa and Haifa, they regret that, because if there were goats that they cut the fire baths when they eat the grass, the dry grass. So when the colonizers intervene, even with nature, they are enemies to nature. But if they let the Bedouins live their life, they will protect the nature and everything. So Palestinian Bedouins are the front line defenders from Masafir Yatta to the north of the Jordan Valley, because they are the one who is living there, whose life is resistance. Otherwise, they can be located in urban cities or towns where they can go and work in Israeli settlements and come back with 100 pounds and buy with 110 pounds Israeli products. Then they are the good Palestinians Israel wants. So that's why they are targeting them, because they are spread. There are no borders for Bedouins. And there is a strong attachment to the land. Their memories are on the land. That explains how Israel is always following them. This is the third Nakba for the Bedouins. If you allow me, Sumail, to shed a light on changing the lifestyle of Bedouins, back in the 90s, Israel offered Palestinians homes to reallocate them east of Jerusalem from the path of the master plan of Ma'ali Adumim settlements. They brought them and they put them in concrete homes east of Jerusalem in less than 1 kilometer square. The first thing they did, they sold their sheep, because there is no space to go with their sheep. Men became with bellies, no sports. Women are jailed. Bedouins were feeling safe to send their women to sell the cheese in Jerusalem from the desert of Jerusalem without having any fear. Today, they are afraid to let them go to Caesarea from these concrete homes. These concrete homes for them is jails, Before, they were living in the desert, in the semi-desert of East Jerusalem. And the Bedouins are unskilled workers. So what kind of work they can do when they are jailed with no sheep to produce them milk and cheese and yogurt? You know what? Social conflicts start to arise among them. The crimes, the drugs, and then they feel slaves by going to work as a cheap labor in the settlements and in Israel. So this is an example of how Israel is trying to reallocate or forcibly displace the Palestinian Bedouins from these huge areas that they are living there for decades to put them in forests of concrete. The same as they are doing with the Palestinians who are living in Nakab in Israel. And they are reallocating them, destroying their infrastructure every day. Those people now are suffering mental health, psychological problems. While they were in the nature, they have a good well-being by being in the desert every morning, witnessing the sunrise every morning with their sheep and goats. That's how occupation is following them physically and mentally and all the aspects of their health. Women and men, children and elderly. So that's where we can see back in 2014, they tried to do the second phase. We organized a campaign called Jerusalem Gates, and we stayed there for a month. The Israeli authorities built the infrastructure, but we convinced the Bedouins not to do it because we have another example in front of you. Don't do it. And until now, they didn't succeed to displace them and to reallocate them in the new location. That is something we are trying to focus on it in a way that those Bedouins will remain the frontline defenders. When we say how everyday resistance is going, when I do something through my everyday doing and I feel I challenge the occupation. So who is doing that more? Me sitting in an office, or this Bedouin guy who is with his goats and sheep in front of the settlement and settlers? Their everyday doing is resistance. Different than the neoliberal policies and the development processes that is taking place in the big towns and the urbanization of the Palestinians. Just to let you, by nature, Palestinians are countryside people. 2/3 of the Palestinians before Oslo were living in the countryside, while 1/3 is living in the towns and the cities. Nowadays, 2/3 of the Palestinians are living in the urban towns and 1/3 is living in the countryside. This reflects the economic situation, how people are looking for jobs and employment instead of being farmers and shepherds as Bedouins are doing. So that's who are the Bedouins. A Bedouin remained Bedouin by his lifestyle. A farmer could be a Bedouin when he lives the lifestyle of a Bedouin, when he is a producer. So my own definition of Bedouin is that person who is close to nature, close to land, a producer, not consumer person, and free with a good well-being by being in nature.
Very interesting. There's so many lessons to be learned, and you touch about something of food politics, ownership of land, and the different ways neoliberalism takes over resistance. So you work with the Bedouin community. What exactly does the PSCC do to support the Bedouin community? And I believe you recently worked with the Bedouins of East Ramallah. Can you tell us a bit more about your work with the Bedouin community?
Yep. The campaigns that now we are doing with the Bedouins in order to create safe spaces for the Bedouins. Safe spaces where they feel safe and not under the risk of the settlers' constant and frequent settler attacks. We all know that the settlers are targeting Palestinians in these rural communities, and mainly Bedouins. And now with the new Israeli government, they escalated this. And the attacks are triple in the first half of 2023, are triple than 2022. Why? Because there is a government, including Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, that is supporting the acts of the settlers that started even before the elections of electing Trump back in 2016, when he came out with his plan that I am not going to displace any Israeli from their location. This opened the appetite of the settlers to thief more land, and they increased their attacks against Palestinians. And what we are doing is how we are going to protect those Bedouins by constant presence of Palestinian experts and who have experience to stay with the Bedouins. Because if you feel alone, then it's a problem. You do not feel secure. And if there are people with you, then you feel more secure. You feel like we have people with us. And most of the time, that people, when we ask them, what do you want? They said, do not leave us alone. Do not leave us alone. It's about numbers. This is like coming from a research that's recently I conducted with other teams in Colombia, South Sudan, Cameroon, Myanmar. We found that Palestine is the most dangerous situation because there is no state interventions in Palestine. And there is a state that is backing the violence of the settlers. And we found that, based on this, we are intervening with the communities. Numbers. When there are numbers, the settlers hesitate to attack. And that's why we are working to have constant presence with the Palestinian Bedouin communities so that they feel safe. And we inhibit the settlers' attacks. In the Israeli context, when we talk about the Palestinians, they do not recognize that the Palestinians have the right to defend themselves. So what is the good Palestinian? The good Palestinian is the Palestinian who submit to the attacks of the settlers. Do not defend yourself. If you just raise your hands to defend your head, then you conduct a crime. How come you are able to inhibit the settler when they attack you? I give you an example of my friend who the settlers broke both his arms while he was in his farm. Back in September, 3 settlers came. They followed a shepherd and he escaped. And they approached my friend while he is working in the field. And one of the settlers pointed his gun towards him, while the other 2 carrying a long iron sticks, rods, and they start attacking him. But he was claiming the land with the shovel. He put the shovel like this, and it hits the head of the settler, and the blood bleeds. And my friend, both arms were broken. And the ambulance came to take my friend to the hospital, and the police came, the army came. What they did, they arrested my friend, and they didn't investigate the settlers. And he stayed in jail for 12 days with 2 broken arms, and he paid like $3,000 as a fine. And where is self-defense in this case? And they are targeting many people like this. And the people are aware that if they beat you and you go to open a case against the settlers, most likely you will be imprisoned or pay a fine or bail, or you will have an order not to go back to your home for a month. So this is how there is like this complicity and this cooperation and coordination between settlers, police, army, judge, courts, whatever you want to call. All these are together against the Palestinians, mainly Bedouins, because of the age. That's why we are there. What we are doing also is we are trying to install cameras to document what they are doing, because even we know that if we send these documents to the Israeli courts, this will not help. But at least we spread this to the world to understand what is happening on the ground. So we are doing this. We are trying to protect children while they are going to school. You know that they demolished more than one school for the Bedouins, and now there are more than 62 Bedouin schools under the demolishing orders. So with the right to education, also we are supporting them to bring children to the schools, and we accompany shepherds. We accompany them in order to protect them from settlers' attacks. What we share with them is our experience. We share with them how to behave. So it's a kind of experimental training with the Palestinian shepherds, Bedouins, in order to stay on the land. As well as there are the Palestinian organizations like the Colonization and War Resistance Commission that supports which belongs to the PLO, that supports them with legal support and with to foster their resilience via humanitarian aid. There are also many international organizations that give humanitarian aid to them, like barley for the sheep, because now the spaces are shrinking and they are no more able to herd their sheep away from their communities. And that's the plan. If you see these 100 outposts, the settler shepherds, they are surrounding and choking the Palestinian Bedouins so that they cannot graze their sheep, and to change their lifestyle again, because they know that their existence is resistance. By staying on these areas, they will prevent the land annexation, they will inhibit settlements expansion, they will prevent the settlers from creating a continuous geography between the settlements. So now the settlers are not stopping, by the way, to attack the Bedouins. And this is not because they are not able to continue. Settlers are testing. And the state, I would say, is testing. What will be the reaction of the Palestinians if we do a massacre like Deir Yassin? What the international community reaction will be if we do another Nakba? So it's a matter of testing. So when they attacked Huwara, actually, which is a big town, or Turmus Aya, another Palestinian, it's a test. It's a test because they are weapon, they have the weapon, they have everything, and the Palestinians have nothing. So in terms of power asymmetry, there is a huge power asymmetry between the two parties, but they are testing what is the reaction if we did this or we did that, and how the Palestinians will understand this. Again, being with the people, staying with them, do not let them feel alone, and install the technology, accompany them in their daily life. This will foster their resilience and they will be more determined to stay on their land. Now, why the Palestinian Bedouins sometimes leave? Because if you, of any of the audience, if I tell you to stay under the risk of losing your life and your children, or to lose the land, you know, like there are a level of security, the level of threat that those people are facing is huge. So when they threaten, they attack, they shoot, they kill, so people are afraid. I'm ready to sacrifice myself for my son or my daughter. That's an essential human issue. You know, like those Bedouins cannot see their children being attacked in front of their eyes without reacting. So that's why 6 Palestinian communities moved because of this. They are afraid from the settler attacks against their children. So imagine how much this is worrying for a person living nowhere in the mountains when settlers attack and can kill their children. So no more you can let your son or daughter go with the sheep alone as before. Before we were able to let them go by themselves. We never have a fear. The only fear is the wolves to eat the sheep. But nowadays there are human wolves that are attacking the sheep and the goats of the Bedouins, even attacking the children and the families, the schools, clinics, everything.
Yeah, I think it's important what you said about the involvement of the state and the settlers, because some people say now with the new government, settlers, it's just a bunch of radical settlers, but it's not. It's a state-sanctioned violence. It's connected to systems. It's not just a radical group that's committing the crimes. It is the state itself. And this leads me to the next question. How does the international community play a part in erasing the Bedouin community in Palestine? PSCC recently published a report called Regavim, which details some of the international involvement. Could you share a bit more about that?
Yeah. Sadly, there are people who believe in bringing Jews in this land in order that Jesus will come. And I am, as one of Jesus' followers from Bethlehem, I am telling you, ever, never, this is the message of Jesus. So if you think that you are acting on behalf of the Bible and bringing Jews from all over the world, that's a huge misinterpretation of the Bible. That's completely wrong. So that's some, I'm meaning here the Zionist Christians somewhere in the world. Secondly, we are the indigenous Jewish. We are the indigenous Jewish who stayed in this land. And we will remain in this land. So when we want people to, first of all, to understand what is happening here, because how we were educated, that this is an Arab-Jew conflict, it's not true. Completely, it's not true. It's not an Arab-Jewish conflict. If my brother took my land, I will never forgive him, and I will resist until I have my land. So it's not about Arab, Jews, whatever. No. It's about occupation. It's about my freedom. It's about what is happening by taking my land, everything. Secondly, international, when they support, but first let's talk about the states. I want to remind the audience with what happened last December when the Palestinian Liberation Organization asked for a legal advice from the ICC. All the colonial powers voted no. Against what? Against their laws. When they asked to investigate about the crimes, they said veto, including UK, US, Germany, France, Italy. Look at these states, how much blood is on their hands. And they voted no for just a legal advice from the ICC, from the Hague International Court of Justice. So that's the official state. The official positions is no act. What they are doing is they are feeding us with rice, flour, and sugar to be fat for the Israeli sharks to eat us. And if you want to understand this hypocrisy, look at what they are sending to Palestine and what they are sending to Ukraine. You can understand how the double standards. See what they are sending to Ukraine to support them and to stand in solidarity with them. Not to the point that they are sending us sugar and rice and flour to be fat. They are also supporting and funding the extreme fundamentalists in Israel to occupy more and more from our land. Ragavim budget is millions and millions from international community, from the Israeli agencies, councils, the government now. The head of Ragavim is Smotrich. He was the head of Ragavim. So that is a complete, not only complicity, but it's even more part of when they support these organizations, when they stand beside them and they legitimize what they are doing. And they think that this is the message of God when they do so. So that's something I think is part of the crime against the Palestinians when we support these settlements. But I want to say that those settlers are well known and their hands are full of the blood of the Palestinians. And in this case, we urge international community, solidarity groups, in order to stand and investigate about their money that is going to the settlers in order to kill Palestinians. So we need to take that into consideration. And that is very, very serious issue, because without resources, they will not have all what they have. You know, the technology they have, the drones, the 4x4 cars, the many volunteers, even international volunteers, even the shepherd settlers, all of them are volunteers, not Israelis. They come from the US, from Europe, from Latin America, to just grab the land of the Palestinians. Moreover, those settlers, they are establishing these bed and breakfast and all of these things, and you can see them on internet. And just ask them, if they see that you are pro-Palestine, they'll propose you a path to the Dead Sea without entering the Palestinian communities, and they will avoid any political discussion. But if they see that you are pro-Israel, they will tell you that those Palestinians, even they do not say Palestinians, Arabs, they want to kick us, they occupy this land illegally, and so on. So we need to be aware. And on the other hand, if we look at the solidarity groups, I mean, the INGOs that are working, there is a kind of ceiling, top level that they can work as humanitarian issues, bringing a tent, I don't know, all these essential things that people can survive. So we do not want this. We need beyond that. We need a political act. How we are going to create a chain that will stop first those who are outside supporting the settlements. If we ask the UK government, and I know some friends who are writing them, even manual, they're handwriting letters to their MPs and to the Secretary of the Foreign Affairs in the UK government about their opinion about the settlements. And clearly they said it's illegal and we are urging Israel to stop building settlements. But when it comes to let's sanction these settlements, let's boycott these settlements, they will not act. And with the new anti-Semitic definition in the UK, it's catastrophe. It's like, it's not only against solidarity with Palestine, it's your personal freedom as UK people. They are sieging you also. And you know, like this kind of politics that's taking place in the UK. So we need to redefine humanitarian aid or humanitarian. We are in 2023, not in the Second World War, and we are now using the same concepts that we used in the past. Let's change this concept. We need political solidarity. Solidarity means we are together and we are against what is happening, not only to send some humanitarian aid that makes people survive and just their nose up the surface of the water.
It's interesting because Palestinian liberation theology describes a theological Nakba, where Christian Zionists use the Bible and Jesus and Christianity to justify oppression towards the Palestinians. And there's a clear link between Christian Zionism and the funding of settlements and of erasure of Palestinians. So when we resist Palestinian Christian Zionism, we're not only resisting them theologically, but also practically by stopping their funding. Yeah, there's a clear link there. So I'm going to ask a few questions from the chat. I'll try and ask them all. The first question is, why do you think Israel is so afraid of the Bedouin community? If I interpret that question correctly. What is Israel so much afraid of?
First of all, Bedouins are tribe-based communities. I will talk on two levels in this. Tribe-based communities that are very connected to the other half of the tribes in Israel, in the Nakab. So anything that can happen to the Palestinian Bedouins in West Bank well reflects on Bedouins in Israel. I'll give you an example. Back in the days, I think 2 years ago, an Israeli truck ran over a Palestinian Bedouin activist called Yusuf Hadalin from El Khair Bedouin community. And they killed him. Simply, they killed him. And he is a very humble, non-violent activist and so on. During the funeral, I never saw that number of Bedouins together in my life. Thousands of Bedouin came from Galilee to the Nakab to the funeral of the Bedouin. Bedouins from each single village came there. Traditionally, Bedouins are coming together in a tribe and they have this revenge issue, but at the same time, this will create problems among the Israeli society because we know that some of the Bedouins in Israel, they serve in the army. They serve in the Israeli army. There are 3,000 Bedouins who are soldiers in the Israeli army. So also this will create an issue. One day in my village, I confronted one of the Bedouin soldiers and I told him, you want to show loyalty to this state? You will never. Look at your parents in Arakib, how they are doing. They took it in a personal way. And I saw how much he is angry and he wanted revenge from me and he arrested me. Because I tried to wake him up as a Palestinian Bedouin living in Israel, and he is serving in the army. There are a few thousands of them in the Israeli army. Secondly, on the international level, and on the concept is clear, it's a Nakba. And Israel is trying to hide the first Nakba, how they will justify the new Nakba. So that is a source of fear for Israel in a way that today is not 1948. So that there are no cameras at that time, nothing, only the testimonies of the people. And sometimes there were like some documents coming out of all the massacres that they did in 1948. So Israel is still trying to hide this issue. So they are afraid now, in a way, that they have a very extreme government, that they want to do this pulse that will create and generate international reaction, while the other parts of the government want to do it smoothly. Why? To make all this noise around us if we push the Bedouins from where they are to the edge of Area A and Area B. I think that, to an extent, makes Israel a little bit reluctant in doing it in a massive way. Let's take another example, is Khan al-Ahmar. With the Palestinian popular resistance and all the sit-in campaign in the community, and with the European Union statements and the American opposition, Israel did not manage to displace the people of Khan al-Ahmar. So they stayed there. So that gives us a kind of what we can see in the future. If there is like internal Palestinian resistance, popular resistance, external pressure, then we create like kind of double pressure on Israel, so they will not do what they are doing. That's also reflects on the general situation in West Bank. With all this, always what mobilize people? I'm telling you, repression is not a source of demobilization for Palestinians. Repression is a source of mobilization for Palestinians, and this is logic. In many contexts, if you put more pressure, you demobilize people. In Palestine, no. What is happening now is an example. The more you do pressure, the more the Palestinian reacts. Jenin, Nablus, and Gaza now. Gaza is coming out as a result of the repression in Jerusalem and beyond. The Jenin is coming as a result of attacking a woman in Hebron and searching the women in Hebron. So there are like this kind of, if you increase your oppression and aggression, we also know how to resist. And that's where it is happening in Jenin, Nablus, and others. The same with us. In the nonviolent movement, we also saw that when Israel is doing something on the ground, there is a kind of source of mobilization for people to join and be part of what is happening.
It's important to remember the stories of victory, even if they're small, because a lot of times we hear a lot of defeat, the continuous Nakba, but this continuous resistance, and there are stories of victory with international pressure and with popular resistance. There are small victories, not enough, but it's important to remember that it works. It can work. There's a question about a tribe in the Naqab that's been replaced more than 150 times, as the question alleges. Do you know about that tribe? And if so, what's their current situation?
Yeah, Arakib village is Arab Shibli in the Naqab. They destroyed their villages more than 200 times. And a Palestinian were killed there, and they want to reallocate them in another area and to put them in big towns, again, to change their lifestyle and to take their rights from being on the land. And this is when we talk about, this is an example, Arakib is an example of what is happening in all historical Palestine. Arakib is also example both, because we are mirroring here the kind of sumud and the kind of oppression. The sumud of the Arab Shibli in that village that is now there for after 200 times of demolishing this village, and at the same time they are looking at a point that the people will get tired. The people are not getting tired because this is their life. This is the kind of life that they are there. Why Israel is looking to rent the land for Israeli settlers, and they want to reallocate Palestinians. Why they want to urbanize Palestinians? The Palestinians are happy with their lifestyle, and this is their land. Historically, they are there before 1948. But back in the 50s, when the Minister of Agriculture visited Naqab, and he said, the first thing we want to do is that we want the Bedouins to change their jalabiya. You know how the Bedouins are wearing. We want them with trousers. We don't want to see the shibriya, the knife, you know, the Bedouins are putting the knife. We don't want. And we don't want to have sheep and goats. We want them to work in the kibbutz. And we want their women to be sitting in front of the house, camping the hair of their children, full of camel. شو الكامل بالإنجليزي؟
ما بعرف.
Small insects that grow in the hair. They want to see
nets.
Yeah. So this is the image he said. And I want the Palestinian Bedouin to come back and to see his wife sitting in front of the house, taking the socks and shoes from his legs and wash them for him because he's coming tired from the kibbutz. So from here, we understand where Israel is going with the Bedouins. They don't want them to spread on the land. And that's Arab Shipley challenged this. And they managed to mobilize the Palestinians in 48. They have a big marches coming from Jerusalem, from the north to Naqab. With many Knesset members who are going there with them. And moreover, they organized campaign against that, and we benefited from them. We invited Shipley, those people who are organizing the campaign, to learn from them. We brought them to Masafir Yatta, to other Bedouin communities, to talk to them, to Khan al-Ahmar, so that they can share their experience, how you can challenge and resist the Israeli policies against Bedouin communities. So at the end, they are there, but let's say some people were moved and pushed to the town, but there are still people who are living there, and still they are in the village.
Thank you. There's a question by another member. They ask, I'm interested in the village of Rashida. Having visited the village in 2017, I understand the people built the village as a way of finding some protection from the action of the Israelis. Can you speak on that?
Rashida or Rashida, east of Bethlehem?
Rashida, I think. Maybe the person asking the question, can you clarify? Maybe in the meantime, we can answer the question. Are there any ecumenical accompaniers? I think they're referring to EAPPI, living with Bedouin communities.
Yeah, let's talk about the third-party intervention and solidarity groups that are coming to stand beside the Palestinians. I would say there is a spectrum of intervention, include a spectrum of activists and organizations that are intervening in Palestine, in these villages. Among them are the APPIs, the basic groups who are coming there. They are doing a great job in a way in relation to documenting what is happening. And I would say APPI, I was one of their coordinators in Bethlehem area back in the days 2006-07, because they have an office in Bethlehem and office in Hebron, Yatta, and Jerusalem, I think. what we need from APPI, there is this partiality, impartiality, neutrality, and so on. I know that the Israelis are putting pressure on the APPIs and the Quakers in the UK and other countries in order to stop, and they are very visible for the Israelis, the volunteers of the APPI. They are doing good job, and I would say we need them. As I told you before, people do not want to feel alone, and the APPs are always with the people, and they are documenting what is happening. They cannot intervene, it's okay, but they are within the spectrum of solidarity, and the spectrum of solidarity from observers to the frontline defenders. So APPI is one of them, one of many other actors like Operation Dove, ISM, Jewish American groups who are coming there also, and some Israeli activists. So yeah, they are doing good job, and we would like them to continue their advocacy. I know in the UK that they are doing a great job in relation to advocacy, and they are very well known, and they are able to reach the churches and beyond. But also we need them on the ground to move more with the people on the ground. I mean, move, I don't know how to put it, but to move to the right of the spectrum of solidarity.
Unfortunately, I don't think I have enough time to ask all of the questions, but I would recommend anybody who has asked or want to ask to contact PSCC, get involved with their different social media platforms, follow them. You can follow the reports that they publish and the work that they do. So yeah, please do so. And just before we ask Dr. Suleiman to give us a last note, next week, Kumi Now will focus on nonviolent resistance, and we'll be inviting Rabit, the organization Rabit, to share with us. So please tune in for next week. We've got 2 minutes left, Dr. Suleiman. What would be your last message to us in regarding this issue and moving forward and being in solidarity?
There is hope. I'm telling all of you, there is hope. And without hope, there is no life. And we are all in one boat. And no one is able to make a hole in this wall, in this boat, because we will die all. That's why we have like a common ground to work on. We are doing a Faz'a campaign to help and support farmers in picking olives. Please contact us if you want to come, join, support from inside, outside Palestine. Palestine is the Holy Land. It's the heart of the body. If the heart is healthy, the hand will function well. The head and the brain will function well. So we have a duty to maintain the message of Jesus about making this heart healthy, so the world will live in peace, and together we can do that. If we do believe in the values of Jesus, then we will live in peace, justice, equality, freedom, and together we will change the situation on the ground. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you for organizing, for joining, for doing all of this for Palestine, for humanity, and following the path and the values of Jesus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Suleiman. Thank you very much. And with that, please share also this recording on Facebook, and please join also next time. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and hope to see you in action as well. And with that, I will give you a good rest of the day, evening, morning, and afternoon. So goodbye, everyone, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.